It's that time of the week again, and you are welcome back to Molby on the spot here in Anfield Index Pro. I'm Trev Downey, joined, of course, by the Liverpool legend that is Jan Molby. So we can look back at the week that was and wince. Good evening, Jan.
Yeah, good evening, Trevor. What a great time, eh?
What a time to be alive, brother. I'm struggling with all of it. I'm sure you are yourself. We've been blessed since we started this show to have nothing but good things to talk about. And even when things were bad, like a comparable 6-game losing streak under Kloppo, there was never this feeling of despair and despondency that is around the place now. It's quite remarkable to the extent that you and I think, are going to have to engage in some conversation around the solidity or otherwise of the manager's job. That's quite a stunning spot for us to be in.
Absolutely, Trevor. I mean, who would have thought that we would end up in this position? But I do think it's kind of becoming real. I've done a bit of media work in the last couple of days, and the one question everybody asks: is he under pressure? Of course, he's under pressure. He's the manager of Liverpool, and we're not winning. The players are not playing well, and new players who've joined the club are not settling in. So, of course, he's under pressure. But we're not about to sack him. And then people go, yeah, but of course, if he continues, then it becomes a different story, doesn't it? So after Forest on Saturday, and when we did the show last week, Trevor, I was so reluctant with this Forest game. I went a narrow 2-1 win because I was so reluctant because I just thought that Elliot Anderson and Gibbs White in the middle, I just think, and we did, we struggled against them, but I just never saw the struggle against PSV Eindhoven. Almost regardless of what shape we're in, I just thought we're better than them, and we would show it at Anfield in a European night. And so, never mind to lose, but to lose in the manner that we did, it's kind of blown the door open, hasn't it, Trevor? And I'm not trying to be funny or nothing, but to go through all the problems we got is easier 3-hour show, isn't it? If we start and go through every problem we've got, and also try and find solutions to, how we can move out of this difficult period and how we can move forward, isn't it? How are we going to be looking in 18 months, Trevor? These are kind of, when we did what we did in the summer, you thought, I know we're going to look like in 2 years' time, but we don't anymore.
We don't, and the uncertainty is the thing that's eating away at most of us, I think, because like I started the show off with, that was what you and I have had as a lovely sort of reliable blanket to snuggle into for the duration of the show that we've been doing for 7-8 years, whatever it is now. It feels like we've always had a sort of certainty around where the club is going, the trajectory, the knowledge that things are bad now, but they will sort themselves out. And a lot of people were leaning into that very thing, Jan. Okay, it's a bad spell, but we need to sort of weather it. Look, this guy won us the league. Players don't become bad overnight. All the usual cliches were getting fired at the wall. And listen, they have a lot of sense behind them, because most of them were true, right? Arne Slot has not suddenly become a terrible manager. He was very impressive last year in winning the league with his tactical work in game. Now, is he capable of having a bad run at the same time as all the players are? Yes. Are there extenuating circumstances going on at the moment where some senior players may have just, a feeling that it's coming to an end for them at the end of this season anyway? Yes. Are there new boys who haven't settled yet? Again, yes. And are there other disgruntled in-betweeny guys who aren't getting a sniff of the team, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent? Again, yes. This can't really add up to a happy camp. And that's probably the biggest difference. It's not to say Slot is less of a man manager than Klopp, although most humans are. But the camp can't be content in itself. There's too many things going on there, isn't there? And there's the whole blanket of the grief with Diogo hanging over everything as well. It's just got to have, it seems to have made for a very sort of disjointed group of individuals, because that's how it's showing on the pitch, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in dressing rooms, Trevor, and I've been in successful dressing rooms and also in dressing rooms when it starts to go the other way. And disgruntled players, there's nothing new about disgruntled players at football clubs. But I do think that some of the most disgruntled footballers at our clubs are some of the long-serving players. Take somebody like Joe Gomez. Now, Joe has never been viewed as in our best starting 11 player, yeah, but he's probably, I might be right in saying he's our longest serving player. So to have that kind of unhappiness of the players who've been there for a long time, it's the kind of worst unhappiness you can have. If it's new players who've just come in through the door and whatever, we can all deal with that. And we know why they're unhappy, isn't it? But we've got some of these, players that you expect to be able to, they get a better grasp of what it's like to play at Liverpool. They know what it's like to be successful and all these things. And so they're kind of the last people you want to be unhappy, and I guess Robbo is a little bit the same, isn't it? As much as we want to be sensible about it, and Robbo played 3 games in a week, and you go, well, maybe he needs to rest, he shows have to do Scotland games or whatever. But that's not how Robbo is thinking, is it? He's thinking, my club's in trouble. Why aren't I playing? As much as he'll be as diplomatic as he can. So it is an issue, isn't it? It is absolutely an issue, Trevor. As I said before, the problems everywhere you look, and everyone I speak to have different issues about what is wrong. And I've never even, I talk to myself, I haven't heard anyone kind of come up with a solution that I think, do you know what? That might actually work. It is an extremely tricky situation. And I'm also not a big fan of all of a sudden going, I told you so, because I didn't. I was quite happy in the summer. I thought we'd done some good work. There was certain things that you could question. But I think we all thought, with the quality of the manager and with the quality of the players, we will overcome all these problems. And obviously now, some of these issues, and we'll talk about some of these issues on the show, Trevor, isn't it? That might have been issues in the summer that we thought we'll overcome this because Arne Slot, the players, the Liverpool Football Club will overcome these things in it. But we haven't. That doesn't mean that we won't. But at the moment we haven't, which makes this period now, just in terms of form, it just makes it horrendous, Trevor. Horrendous.
And people are struggling to believe what they're seeing with their own eyes. I know it doesn't make any sense to me when people tell me what's going on, even though I've watched the games and I've done show after show about the games. And just like to have a look again, because I think there's a starkness to actually watching it in front of you. Just to share this with people here. I mean, I find this to be a kind of unrivaled period. And it's precisely because of what you said. There are enough good footballers that it shouldn't be a situation where we are looking at these results. There are enough good footballers that any given 11 at Liverpool can go out and not be on the receiving end of these results. The 4-1 last night against PSV, we'll get to it. The 3-0 against Forest, we'll get to it. Both of those are at Anfield. At Anfield. City, 3-0 at City. You can always suffer a defeat at City, but not in the manner that we did. The Real and Villa games seem now to have been glorious outliers where teams came and were reckless in their defensive attitude, and we managed to keep our act together against Villa and keep the clean sheet and actually put together a very good performance against Real. But again, outliers, because the one before that, a 3-0 defeat to Crystal Palace, again at home. Brentford 3-2. This is absolutely appalling stuff. United, a couple of games before that, beating us 2-1 at Anfield. Again, Jan, like I said to you, it almost requires saying these things out loud for us to understand just how bad this run has been. Because a lot of us are inclined to put our fingers in our ear and say la, 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 because you don't want to think about the thing we've got here, the slot question. Nobody really wants to talk about this. Sensible fellas like yourself and myself have been around a good few years, don't want to talk about this. And yet this team, this manager, the combo of the two of them, they are making us have this question. I mean, it's all very well to say we're not going to change the manager and be very certain about it. But what happens if we lurch into West Ham and into Sunderland and get another 2 disappointing results? And it could easily happen. I have no faith that it won't happen the way things are going at the moment. At what point do you call it? Do you just stick with the manager regardless? And here's where I'm trying to get to with this. I'm not a fella who I'm eternally grateful to Arne Slot for winning us a league. and being instrumental in that win. And I think he's a very good man. I think he's the right personality for the job. He's unflappable. Love all those things about him. He's clearly an excellent tactician. Again, he proved that last year in winning the league when Jurgen Kutten with the same group of players. So the last thing I want to do is talk about him being on his bike. But the problem, Jan, is we're coming up to a window. And in the window, money can be spent to address some of the issues you mentioned earlier on. One of them is the midfield, and that has been an issue that's been hanging around. You and I were talking about in the summer. Yeah, we were happy with the people coming in, but clearly the midfield wasn't addressed. Neither was the defence, and it was a last-minute shit show. Okay. But what do? Do you give Arne Slot the money and say, go ahead and invest in players you think are the right players? And then if it doesn't right itself, we've hamstrung ourselves for the next person coming in summer if it doesn't clear itself up. I can understand why people are saying that this is a real live issue and there's a really harsh decision that might need to be made before anyone would really like to make it. What do you think of that theory?
Well, I mean, I find it impossible to disagree with anything you say in many ways, Trev. I mean, we're not a second football club, but what does that mean? Sometimes you're being forced to do things that you don't really want to do in an ideal world. In terms of the January window coming up, and I think there's some interesting angles on this, is that let's say that Arne Slot gets through December with a mixed bag of results, but it takes the pressure off him a little bit. Do we then go into January, Arne Slot stays in the job, but we then don't spend any money? Would that be a possibility? That you kind of go, well, okay, we're going to give Arne a bit longer, but this group of players, so we're not going to spend. Or let's say Arne Slot has, let's just say 3 defeats on the bounce. As of from today, that makes it very difficult for him to stay in the job. Then we appoint somebody else. We would then be some kind of, well, we would almost make a promise to a new manager, wouldn't we? A new manager will look at the squad and he'd go, if you want me to take this job, there's certain places we need to strengthen in this. And so that's also an angle, isn't it? Because I think Arne Slot would be desperate for new signings, but I don't think he'll be jumping up and down about it because he's been part of this journey, hasn't he? And I'm sure in the summer, as I'm not convinced that it was a great plan we had in the summer when you look back on it, but I'm 100% sure that Arne Slot was part of that plan. He would have sat in on those meetings where they'd gone, this is what we're going to do, and then we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and in 18 months' time, we're going to look like this, and he'd have gone, okay, I'm all in on that, yeah, let's go. In the end, we got so many things wrong. The first thing, Trevor, is, and we should have mentioned this a long time ago, is that people talk about all the players we've signed, too many. And I go, yeah, but how come we put ourselves in a position where we needed to sign so many players? That, for me, is bad planning. You put yourself in a position where you need to sign 8 or 10 new players. That's bad planning. How did we ever end up in that position? And when we know that there's things happening like Trent Alexander-Arnold, then you've got to stop the others. Why did we sell the most promising centre-half we had? Is that because the money was good, 35 million euros? And why, in the end, did we sell Luis Diaz so we would get, let's say, 30 million euros more than we would have done 12 months down the line when we needed him? Especially what happened to Shota. Those things just doesn't make any sense, Trevor. So, yes, Arne Slot, but at some stage, we will have to visit Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes. That's for sure.
I'm glad you said that. And I think that is exactly the kind of balance that we've come to expect from you when we ask you these kind of questions. It remains a live issue. It won't go away. Some people have leaned into criticizing the players. Your fellow ex-Red, Jamie Carragher, was incredibly harsh recently on a couple of occasions about Mo Salah. He seems to have a bit of a bee in his bonnet about Mo not fronting up and talking to the press for reasons. I'm not sure why, given that if Virgil doesn't do it, surely Andy Robbo would be next in line. But he seems to be bent out of shape about Mo and the lack of end product from Mo this season. It seems daft to me, and I take no pleasure in any sort of discussion around Mo Salah and his drop-off form, considering he won us the league almost. Well, I won't say single-handed, but it was a huge impact on our league win. Was Mo Salah's form. It leaves you in a situation where, no matter how calm and pragmatic you might be or I might be in our approach to this, how little we want to consider it. Like I said, the reality is if we lurch into the weekend and then lurch back out of it with a defeat at West Ham, the pressure builds to a kind of untenable level. There's only so many times you can hear reassurances that the club has faith in Slot. That used to be, again, when we were younger, the kiss of death for a manager was the people coming out and saying, hey, he's got our backing, you know. So it's left us in a situation, and it might be tasteless. I don't really care. We're going to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, we're not doing our job properly. It's left us in a situation where we have people talking about the reality of what do we do if this man is no longer in a job in the short term or in the medium term or in the summer or whenever it happens to be. And there were an awful lot of people talking about who might step up and replace him. And I've just put up there for the video viewers the tweet there from Anfield Index with the odds for the next Liverpool manager. And again, look, you heard us. You heard what I said here. This is not about, dancing on anyone's grave or anything like that. I would be wonderful if Arne starts against West Ham and puts us back on track. But the signs are not good. And so there's a big talk about this. You can see them there yourself, Jan. Jurgen Klopp is 2-1. Iriola is 5-1. Glasner 6-1. Unai Emery 9-1. Simone Inzaghi 10-1. As is Nagelsmann. As is Gerrard, for reasons. Zidane 12-1 and Marco Silva 14-1. And I don't know if any of those make any sense. The only one I can think of, I'm looking at Simone Inzaghi, who might easily be tempted. Obviously, an awful lot of people would love the job that are on this list. This guy doesn't want a bar of it. But Inzaghi is possibly the best candidate of the ones that are there in terms of his track record. I don't know what you think about that. Just humor me for a minute. If you were to think about someone who could step in and maybe steady ships or sort of manage the squad as is in a good way, given their previous track record. Is it a Nagelsmann that you go for next? Is it an Iriola, kind of an up-and-comer? Or do you go with someone who's a little bit more proven and has a league under their belt like Inzaghi? I mean, what do you think? Who are the outstanding candidates?
I think, should Liverpool ever need to appoint another manager, they will go through the same process as they went through last time. And they will end up, I think, trying to second guess who the next big thing is going to be. I think that's exactly what we did with Arne Slot. There was nothing wrong with Arne Slot's CV as such, but he was in the Netherlands. And I think we thought, well, there's everything about this guy that we like. And I think they would go through the same process again, trying to find the next guy. Because when you look at the established names, Trevor, is there any of the established names that are within reach that you really fancy? You know, I mean, the sexiest name on that list is Zinedine Zidane, and what he did at Real Madrid and whatever. But would you really want him at Liverpool because of the style he has as a manager? He's not a coach. We brought Arne Slot in. Arne Slot is not our manager, is he? He's our head coach. You know, there's a reason that we gave him that title. He's here to coach the team, isn't it? You know, so on that list, Iriola at Bournemouth, great manager. But is he a star maker? Is he somebody who makes it? Is he somebody who helps the players the next step in their careers? Helps a football club in the next step? Is he the finished article? Is he the guy to deal with some of the best players in the world with that intensity that he demands every minute of every day? I don't know. So yeah, on that list, Nagelsmann is a really, really good manager. He's got a great profile, but I think for the time being, he's got a job he's quite keen on with the German national team. So it is very, very difficult. I mean, last time we were looking at the manager, there were a couple of candidates, and one of them who's now at Manchester United with Ruben Amorim. Arne Slot was somewhere on that list. Even Thomas Frank at Brentford, a lot of people looked at Thomas Frank. But all those have kind of had that move, haven't they? They've had that next move, and now you can make a decision, whatever you think of Thomas Frank and Ruben Amorim and Arne Slot. So you kind of look at the next ones, and I was looking through a little bit today and seeing, you know, who are the teams who are doing really well in the domestic leagues, and you've got to be serious and maybe only look at the top sort of 8 or 10 domestic leagues. And is there any sort of young managers that's pulling up trees. And I actually ended up in Germany with Leipzig, who's back. Leipzig is back doing their stuff. They're second in the Bundesliga to Bayern Munich. And they got a really young coach called Arne Werner. And I was just wondering whether, when Liverpool do all the things that they do, that it might be somebody like him. And they up and go, he might just be the one. I don't know.
It's going to be very interesting to watch, and the speculation will only continue apace. I wanted to address it with you, and the chat panel there has gone wild with suggestions. We see it, fair play to you, but we just got to keep this show on the road here, folks. A couple of things I wanted to address. First of all, with regard to Arne, who's in the job now and for the at least short-term foreseeable, I feel a little bit sorry for the guy because I don't think he does himself any favors, and I don't think it's out of silliness. I said last night on Raw, I've known a lot of Dutch people over the years from a teaching gig that I used to do during the summer, and then just making friends with some of those people and then getting to know their friends. And I know it's a cliche to talk about nationalities in any kind of given way, but there is a sort of a frankness and an honesty to Dutch people. You've experienced it. You lived there. And it's not a cliche to say that. And I think sometimes that's a sword that Arne falls on in his interviews. He was asked recently, like, what do you think is going on? He said, I don't know. Basically, I'm confused. And a lot of people have used that as a stick to beat him with, whereas I kind of vaguely admire that. It's like he's not hiding. He doesn't go hiding in interviews. He doesn't put down a line of bullshit, which even Jurgen, who is sainted in everyone's opinion, could engage in when he wanted to just deflect and just talk nonsense to shut a topic down. So for that reason, I think if it does, all it's doing is actually fanning the flames. And I do feel a little bit sorry for the dude that way. What do you think about that? About how he comes over? I think he's been very dignified, I have to say.
I do. I agree. I saw somebody say a while ago, and it wasn't necessarily about Arne Slot, but it was about Dutch people in general. And they said, let's not forget it's their second language, and they might struggle to get their point across. And I said, no. The fact that it's their second language, I think they're very much more direct to the point because they don't have the same usual vocabulary. So they get to the point very quick, and you can't misunderstand it unless, of course, you choose to and go, "Oh, he never meant that." But I think he did, and I think that with Arne, we saw the interview after the game against PSV Eindhoven. He was talking about the penalty with Virgil van Dijk, and most. So we can't be in any doubt that Virgil van Dijk, was disappointed that a foul wasn't given. It wasn't a foul, but he was disappointed. Arne Slot then said, you're not going to get a foul for a little push like that, and that's his captain, isn't it? So that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it, Trevor? Is that, but it's that kind of demand, isn't it? It's that kind of demand you have in the Eredivisie, you have in the Bundesliga, managers before games, before after games, give it to us, you're not allowed to wrap it up. Just give us to it. What is it? So yeah, it is an issue. I think it's unfair to hit him over the head with it, use it as a stick. I think that's very unfair because when managers are not honest or when managers waffle and don't answer questions, we moan as well, isn't it? And when they're being direct and trying to explain, and I know that in reality, when you're lost 9 out of 12, you don't want explanations, you want action, isn't it? But on press conferences, press conference after the PSV game, press conference the next day for the weekend, isn't it? He has to answer the question. So, I do feel for him.
Yeah, and he does. He has to keep rolling out in front of these cameras, in front of these lights, in front of these people who are asking questions that are less than tactful sometimes. And I do feel, Jan, that probably when the dust settles on this, there'll probably emerge that there was maybe a level to this that we're not aware of, maybe some sort of breakdown in a couple of different major relationships. I think that will probably be at the back of some of this disjointedness. It's hard to explain otherwise in terms of the form falling off a cliff. You saw Curtis Jones' interview, did you, post-match?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Where he talked about, we need to be out there, we need to be like dogs. We used to be like dogs getting into tackles, and he was including himself in it. He wasn't excusing himself from any criticism either. And again, immediately, I saw this, and I was watching it via whatever channel it is that Carragher and Henry do bits for, and it went straight to Carragher, and he again just seemed pissed off and said, "Well, so just do it. Like, don't talk about we need to do it. Just do it." Which I think was counter to the tone that Jones was setting. He was saying, "Look, we've let ourselves down," and you could interpret that as a critique of the manager. You could interpret that as a critique of his fellow players, of himself, but certainly not something to then turn around and go like, "Well, I don't want to hear about that. Just get on with it." Yeah, fine. Like, I mean, these players can't win in these post-match interviews. I thought it was indicative, Jan, of a bigger kind of malaise around the place. When you have a player coming out saying that we're not getting it stuck into tackles, and you can see it with your eye test, man, right? You and I, we go back a while to where passion, determination, win your battles, earn the right to play. How many times did you hear that in your playing career? Earn the right to play. Every game, man. You told me that. And that's sadly lacking. And for that, Slot does have to shoulder most of the blame, right?
I just wondered, Trevor, you know, I've been working with TV for quite a number of years now, and we sort of had the same issue when Sir Alex was at Old Trafford, because you stay behind the line. You never overstep the line. And the moment he left, it was then a free-for-all, wasn't it? I mean, the next manager after Sir Alex was David Moyes, and the grief he got, you know. And I feel a little bit the same here. You know, with Klopp, everybody stayed on the right line, didn't do anything to upset him. And Arne Slot, not that Arne Slot is not a man of some standing, but he's different. Yeah. So he never puts anyone in their place. You know, he kind of answer every question in a polite, nice way. Whereas, you know, Klopp and Sir Alex would let you know, wouldn't they, in those certain terms, either verbally or even with rolling their eyes or whatever. Arne Slot is a decent man, so he never does that. So I think, and I also think with Klopp, like, people often ask me, what about Klopp, Jan? I said, we have nothing to do with Klopp. Ex-players, we have nothing to do with Klopp. Even some of my ex-teammates who are ambassadors of the club have nothing to do with Klopp. Klopp was here to coach the team, isn't it? Arne Slot is a bit more accommodating. You know, we also do some shows for the group I work for, and we have studios on the touchline for some of the games. And you always know when it's Liverpool, because the Netherlands part of our group. You always know when it's us, because Netherlands part of our group, that he will come. You know, but I've seen plenty of German TV stations, channels at Anfield over the years, and Liverpool getting the result that they did or whatever. There's no Klopp, is it? But Arne is always there, isn't he? So it breeds some kind of familiarity that in situations like that works against him, because people are just that little bit braver, and that includes ex-players.
It does. And we came out of the international break all jolly and filled with hope and optimism that, look, we've been asking this man to go and change things up, and nothing changed. And I think that's the most frustrating thing of recent weeks for all Liverpool fans, is seeing how little things have changed. The same personnel on the field, the same underperforming personnel getting their starts every single game regardless. People like Endo sitting on the bench, never getting a sniff, knows he's never going to get a sniff. Joe Gomez, you mentioned earlier on, now Arne has told us that he's having issues and pain with his knees or whatever. But Fede Chiesa is the one that I look at and I think, all right, Fede Chiesa has been probably, if you want to just look at it in an objective way, the worst treated of the Liverpool footballers by Slot in terms of the level of his ability, the impact that he's had in games versus the playing time he's received for those or in return for those. He would be the one who could have thrown all his toys out of the pram and just collect his paycheck until the end of the season and piss off to a happier place where he gets to play every week. He's the one who comes on and looks like he wants to kill lads. As Curtis says, he looks like he wants to go through someone. You know, like we used to say when I was playing, kick someone up in the air. He looks like that guy, even though he's one of our best technicians, even though he's the one who'll manage to get 4 or 5 shots off in the 10 or 15 measly minutes he's given in a game. I just feel like the squad management's a massive issue. Were you not expecting when the Forest thing rolled around that we were going to see? I know there was limitations because of the injuries that came out of the international break, but were you expecting to see something, at least in the shape of the team, that was going to be quite different?
Yeah, I was, because I did a preview show on a Friday and I got the team completely wrong because I thought generally we would do something. And I know we live in a world today, and I'm talking about in terms of football, where we're always scared of the next game, aren't we? A player gets a booking, we got to take him off, so he doesn't get a second booking. Well, it never happened in my day, did it? You get a booking, okay, you deal with it, and then you play accordingly. We can't play him because what about if he gets injured? It's like Joe Gomez, we can't play him because he's the only backup we got as a centre half. But we're always scared of that next moment, aren't we? So for the Forest game, I genuinely thought, Trevor, that some kind of hit rock bottom at Manchester City. But as you say, we can get over that, and that can be shoved under the carpet. It was Manchester City. It's quite possible it can happen, isn't it? So I thought, against Nottingham Forest, we now hit bottom. We're going to do something else, and we're going to deal with Forest. Nothing else. We're going to deal with Forest. Yeah? And we will play a team to try and beat Forest, but also a team that can play in a manner that would benefit us. And I just happen to think, Trevor, that he got the 2 games mixed up, Arne Slot. I didn't want Szoboszlai to play right back against Forest because I didn't think Forest's threat was down the flanks. Forest's threat last season was down the flanks with Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, but not this year with Ndoye and Dominguez. The threat was through the middle with Elliot Anderson and Morgan Gibbs-White, and that's where we needed Szoboszlai's energy. I would have never in a million years played Isak against Forest because you know where to defend, and they defend with 2 big, strong centre halves, and then they got 2 sitting midfield players in front of him. So there's a little box where Alexander Isak's got to play. That's Hugo Ekiteke's game now. Let him battle with them, and then put Alexander Isak in against PSV Eindhoven in an open game where there's spaces he can run into. I think he got the 2 games wrong. And also, in terms of Szoboszlai, he could have played right back against PSV Eindhoven because their threat is down the flanks on the counter-attack. So, and I know it's easy in hindsight, isn't it? But the one thing I will say is that I actually thought about this Friday, you know what I mean? So I was, but it's always difficult, isn't it? I just couldn't believe that Isak started against Forest. And within the first 20 minutes, you knew, didn't you, Trevor? Well, you didn't, because you couldn't, there was nothing, was it? He didn't touch the ball. There was nothing from him, isn't it? Whereas Ekiteke, he's different, isn't it? He, like Alexander Isak, he's so reliant on playing well. If he doesn't play well, nothing, But Ekiteke, if he doesn't play well, it doesn't, of course it matters, but he will still bring something, won't he? He'll still bounce into other people and he'll still course and, he'll run around and he'll do things, isn't it? So, that was really disappointing for me, though.
You put your finger in a few of the ones I was going to talk to you about, and the one that was the least, the one I could understand the least was if you are going to play Alexander Isak because you feel like it's about time he was on the fucking park, maybe. Okay. And like you've said that before, he'll be desperate to start playing and justifying his whatever price tag, whatever, just to play, just to score goals, just to not be talked about in the way that he's been talked about for 6-7 months at this stage. But how do you ignore the lad who's coming bouncing out of his international sort of debut situation with a wonder goal? How do you ignore that? What and why did we sign the 2 of them if there was never going to be a situation where we played them together? For me, the Cody Gakpo situation is absolutely ridiculous at this stage. It's almost as if he's Arne's son or something. Like, play Ekitike off that left side if you want to play Isak. Let them cause a bit of carnage. If Mo Salah is a sacred cow you can't ever consider swapping out, let him continue to play until he keeps having games maybe like the most recent one. And then what would be wrong in the week there last night in trying Rio and reminding the whole of the world that nobody is untouchable if the form is not right. What would be the harm as we bounced into the game against PSV, which was yet another horror show, of saying, you know what, Endo, it's your time, pal. Or Joey Gomez, I need you to do a job for me at centre half because Ibu Konate's a bit all over the shop. I don't know. I feel like he's not making it very easy for himself, the manager, because, like I said on Raw last night, there's a quote that's wrongly attributed to Einstein about how insanity is repeating the same action and expecting different results. And that seems to be what we're doing. Cody will play off the left. Mo will play off the right. We'll play a number 9 that we don't ever seem to have a system for getting the ball to. We play a midfield that's either underweight in terms of its ability to tackle and press, or is underperforming. And we'll play lads at the back who are out of form. And it's just rinse and repeat. And it is maddening. And I do understand why people are completely lacking in patience for Arne now. I do understand that sensible people who I know well and whose opinions I respect have said at this point, oh, I'm done, I'm out. This guy has lost the plot, and it's now at this stage irredeemable. I can listen to that and nod my head and go, you may have a point. I don't want to think about it, but you may have a point. What do you think?
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. It is at that level, isn't it? And there is more and more people thinking that way because of that. But there's so many things, again, we go back and you talk about, you know, our midfield and how light our midfield is. The Premier League grew in the summer. Every team got bigger and we shrunk. You know, we got smaller. And again, it makes me think, what will we do? Were we actually building a Champions League team instead of a Premier League team, you know? Because we ended up with a team that seems ill-prepared to play in the Premier League. And also in terms of what you said in terms of team selection, it would have been so much easier to ask Gomez, Endo, and then Gamora to play at home against PSV Eindhoven. Because he has the same problem, doesn't he? That people are expecting him to do something different for West Ham. But he's going to be reluctant to put them in an away game, isn't he? So again, it would have been easier for him to play them at home and gone, well, see how we go, isn't it? And then if you'd have left Gakpo out or whoever else you might have left out, you can kind of bring them back in. I mean, I wouldn't say I've been a fan, but I've been very protective of Cody Gakpo because I understood why he was playing. You know, tactically, he's very aware and he does his stuff, and I know Arne likes that. And last season, that was the one thing we praised above anything else, was how tactically aware he was on the slot. And I thought, well, Cody Gakpo is just ideal for that. This season, it's been a while since I've seen a Liverpool player as predictable as he's been. And that's really, really disappointing. And that is also a part of the manager's job, you know, either to change the way that Cody Gakpo plays or change Cody.
So we're getting to the point of the show where we're going to look ahead to what's coming up. And a vital part of that, obviously, is going to be how the team lines up. And I think we came out of the international break, like I just said, expecting change, either in personnel, shape, attitude, tactics, whatever, something. Before we look at the games individually, as we look ahead to what's facing Arne Slot, again, remember, this was supposed to be the winnable run of fixtures. Do you envisage that change? Do you think maybe he'll have reached a point where something has to give in terms of selection or shape? Because I have this good feeling that he's going to stick essentially to his way of playing and his personnel, and hopefully that they can weather it out and see it through and get to the far side of it. I don't know that that's the right move. Do you think there's going to be? Do you think he has even a choice at this stage, but to make changes?
Well, he's limited in terms of what he can do, and that's another issue, a slight issue I have with when we look back in the summer. It looked like we wanted to strengthen our starting 11, and we did that at the expense of the squad. You know, and what Arsenal did was they strengthened the squad. They gave themselves more options, and it looked like we wanted to improve our starting 11. And I know why they're thinking that, because of Arne Slot's record of availability. You know, where you kind of go, but this guy's know how to keep him fit in it, and we're only going to need so many players, and we can maybe let one or two of them go to make the money available to sign whatever else we were going to do, isn't it? But it just hasn't worked. So in terms of possibilities, I mean, who plays right back is, even if Frimpong is fit and available, he won't play right back in an away game at West Ham. 100% no. Yeah, Robert will play as a left back. Of that, I have very little doubt. And I think he also having to go with Virgil van Dijk and Konate. And we talk about that with Konate, but Virgil van Dijk has not been great either. And that's the biggest issue we have. When Virgil is not Virgil, everybody suffers. And I would like, just because we're playing West Ham away, and because we can play in a slightly different way, we would at home, I would put Joe Gomez in as a right back again and go, Joe, right back. Just play right back. Don't try and do anything clever. I'm not looking at you to go up and support Mo. Just play as a right back. I'm looking in midfield. The midfield, Trevor, worries me to death. You know, I know that people are talking about Konate and they're talking about Gakpo and Salah is not working well, but that midfield as a whole worries me to death. And he has done ever since, and not really a criticism of Gravenberch, but ever since Gravenberch became that number 6, I've been worried about that midfield. You know, so I look and I'm thinking, what could we do with that midfield? Could we possibly play with a double pivot? Could you play Endo and Gravenberch just to give yourself a chance? Or is that too many changes? Because also you're looking and thinking, he might actually change Cody Gakpo. So would he change that 4 players in the starting 11? I don't know. I think we're probably going to get 2, Trevor. I think we might get 2 changes, but 4, I don't think so. So does Szoboszlai go to right back again? Yeah, probably. I don't know.
I do think, yeah.
I've lost the will, Trevor.
I know. Like, if we see Dalmat right back again, Ibu getting taken off with 15 or 20 or 30 minutes left so that Grav can go in at centre half and then we throw 15 forwards at the wall, I think people are going to start really, you know.
Yeah, but Trevor, at least you know, when we have 4 forwards on the pitch, you know it's over. You can relax, put your feet up. Yeah?
That's not how it's supposed to work.
No, but it does. Yeah,
it does.
That's one mood killer, that. When we have 4 of them on the pitch, yeah, put your feet up and relax because it's over. You know? I have to say, it was 68 minutes against Nottingham Forest. I was in commentary and I didn't say this is it, but I kind of, in a roundabout way, I went, you know, sometimes you can have too many attackers on the pitch, not quite know what we want to do, and I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just before we look at the 2 games individually, a reminder for everybody that we're not being panicky here, just to share a couple of very stark images. We'll start off with the Champions League table, just so we can have a look at it and see how clearly it is. Arsenal sitting top of that like they are of the Premier League as well. And we're just in eye line here, down in 13th. On 9 points, 6 off the pace at the top. And in the terms of the top 8, just a point outside those places. But City are there in 9th on 10 points as well. And Atalanta are in 10th on 10 points as well. So even Newcastle on goal difference are ahead of us in that table. This is sobering viewing, but not something to get too upset about at this stage. I'm not saying it's a free hit, but you do have the opportunity to not win all the games in this and still come through. However, this is the one that is going to stick in people's craw, because this is the one that we were sitting proudly top of this time last year and looking unassailable. Now it is Arsenal who are sitting there on 29 points, with Chelsea, their closest rivals, on 23, and City in behind that on 22. They themselves having pretty poor run of things for them, with 2 losses in 5. But Jan, you have to scroll slowly down to find us here in 12th. And Everton are now ahead of us. And the team that we beat there, or that beat us there 3-0 at the weekend, popped themselves out in 19th up to 16th and are now only 6 points off of us. Meaning we are just as close to the bottom as the top. And this is where people start to think, okay, the season looks very worrying. I know you win nothing at this stage of the year, but I wanted to ask you a very specific question on the back of those league tables. 85, 86, one of the best memories I have as a football supporter, as a Liverpool fan. I think I'm right in saying that you guys were off the pace pretty big time at Christmas, only to win the league on the last day with that Kenny goal, that famous Kenny goal. So when you look at this league table, do you find yourself having little thoughts like that? Or do you find yourself thinking, Jesus, how bad can it get before it starts to get better? Because I'm kind of in the second camp.
No, my Trevor, absolutely 100%. I also think that, and I know there is some guys that in the current squad that's been part of a very successful time at Liverpool, but our squad, I wasn't one of them, but our squad was littered with players who'd done it before, and you never sensed. We had sort of 4 games over Christmas. I think we drew with Newcastle at home, lost to Manchester City away, drew with Forest and drew with Sheffield Wednesday, which if you did that in today's world, people would lose their heads. But nobody really lost their heads because it was always this thing about, yeah, but wait, we now get into the home stretch, and the home stretch is famous, isn't it, in 85, 86, how we got over the line, isn't it? Nothing to do with ability, but to do with a lot of other things. I don't think this squad is quite at that level. Getting worse. I mean, I think if you will lose to one of the next 3 games, West Ham and Leeds away, I don't think are particularly difficult games. And I know Sunderland having a great season, but Sunderland Anfield is also winnable, isn't it? So I think if you lose one of the next 3, I would think that would always make it worse than where we are at the moment, isn't it? To lose another one, because last week we did talk about all these games we were going to win, Trevor. You almost promised the listeners, I mean, here we go. So yeah, I would dearly love for us to avoid a defeat in the next 3 games. When we go change in the Champions League, that's a bit different, but in the next 3 league games, West Ham, Sunderland, Leeds, we can't afford to lose any of them.
And before a brief chat about the 2 games coming up, you've mentioned there West Ham and Sunderland. Just before we chat about those briefly, in terms of the Champions League, which I think an awful lot of us were hoping last night would be like a kind of a stick in plaster that we can pop onto the gaping wound of the season so far and just say, well, look, the dream is still alive there. And it is still alive. But when you look at that and you think about our form there and you think about the kind of despondent, horrific capitulation that we saw last night, 4-1 at Anfield, and they deserved it. They absolutely deserved it. And Forest probably deserved to win by maybe a goal more at the weekend. Do you feel like the Champions League could be a lifeline even for a team that continues to struggle in the league?
My biggest problem, Trevor, is that we appear to be weak, and that's a worry. When you go a team who's not playing well, even the best teams in the world go through periods where they don't play well and they lose games, but we look weak, and that's a massive big worry for me. So this thing that we talk about, Anfield under the floodlights, Champions League nights and whatever, nobody wants to play Liverpool over the 2-legged. There's teams looking at now thinking, yeah, we'd go toe-to-toe with Liverpool. I mean, we look at the league table there before, and Atalanta was there, and I'm thinking, if we play Atalanta now over the 2-leg, they knock us out all day long, because of the intensity and the aggression and whatever they have that we don't have. That's a massive worry for me, Trevor. If we were just a bit more, okay, we're not playing well, but at least we're competitive and we're winning headers and second balls or whatever, I would be more confident. So, and I said this last week, Trevor, and you agreed, is that this isn't about to turn. But that doesn't mean you can't win games, But the whole thing isn't about to turn. We won't sit here in 2 weeks' time and go, wow, Florian Wirtz is now in the team and looks like the best player in the Premier League and Mo Salah's back. That's not the case. But we have to find results from somewhere, because this can't continue.
You point out the fact that we were weak and we look frail. We don't win second balls. Curtis comes out and clarifies that's his perspective as a footballer as well in the team. I have to say I don't understand that, because we've seen heart from each of these guys. Now, maybe the likes of Cody and Grav aren't, sort of particularly aggressive footballers, but you could see a change in attitude that could make a big difference there. And what worries me is that nothing so far has caused that attitude to change. That is the biggest worry for me, I have to say. With West Ham ahead, let's just talk briefly about how they've gotten on recently. I mean, it's clearly a game that Liverpool should be winning. They did win. They did win in recent times, but it was 2-2 with Bournemouth in their last league encounter. That was away at Bournemouth. They won 3-2 at home to Burnley in the previous game, and 3-1 at home to Newcastle in the game before that. Leeds had beaten them 2-1 at Leeds, and they had lost at home to Brentford and away at Arsenal in the previous games to that, and a 1-1 draw with Everton back on the 29th of September. Not inspiring form, maybe slightly better than ours. But it's a team that aren't going to try to finesse against us. Everyone now understands that to play Liverpool, you play as directly as possible. I don't care if it's balls down the side or down the channel, if it's long balls or diagonals. You attack us directly, we're weak because, as you said, the team is fragile physically. And we're not set up to defend very well. I assume you expect that kind of an assault from Nuno and West Ham at the weekend.
I think that would be the idea. But I also happen to think that West Ham are weak. When you look at West Ham and their midfield, their defenders, I think they're weak. If you take the last game against Bournemouth, they were winning 2-0, and then they got absolutely hammered. I mean, it was so one-sided, it was unreal. And how Bournemouth never won, I'll never ever know. But they do have things that can hurt us. So obviously Callum Wilson is back playing in some kind of form. He's a handful. But if they want to go long, he's not the target man, is he? But they got Souček, who might cause us some problems because of his aerial ability, isn't it? They will try with their set pieces. And of course, the star man, Jared Bowen, we'll have to keep an eye on him. So it sounds, this is horrific, Trevor. I think it's a 50-50 game against West Ham away from home.
I know. We're going to clarify that with the prediction at the end, but I feel like you're right. Let's talk about Sunderland, because the likelihood is that game will be played before you and I speak next as well. To clarify for people who are not familiar with how Sunderland have been getting on, they got beaten at Fulham 1-0 in the last league game, drew 2-2 with Arsenal in a bit of a turn-up for the Bucks on the 8th of November at Sunderland, and had a 1-1 draw previous to that with Everton again at home. They went away to Chelsea and beat them 2-1 on the 25th of October and had a 2-0 home win against Wolves on the 18th. Man United beat them 2-0 at home on the 4th of October, and previous to that, they had a 1-0 away win at Forest. And in their most recent game, just so people know what the Sunderland lineup looks like, because it's, I know, well, I speak for myself. If you're not watching a team every week, you can not be familiar with who they have. Sunderland last time out had Rolfs in goals, Ballard, Mukiele and Getruda across the back three, with Hume and Mandava on the flanks, Traore and Lafi on either side in the midfield, Siddiqui and Xhaka and Isidore up top. And Sunderland from the bench can call on the likes of Harrison Reed and Emile Smith-Rowe and Tom Kearney and Adama Traore and some other well-known names. In terms of that particular challenge, Jan, what do you see being the biggest challenge facing Liverpool that Sunderland can present?
Well, first and foremost, the fact that Sunderland are in good form as a newly promoted team. They're having the time of their lives. They bought really well. They bought a lot of players, but they bought well. And I think out of that starting 11 you read there, I think it's only Ballard who was in the championship with them last year in the starting 11. But they are everything that we hate playing against. They are good in the air, they go long, threaded set pieces, they're physically strong, they're well organised, they defend with a low block. So there you are. This is a game, Trevor, at Anfield, midweek, who could be one of those nightmares because they are everything that we can't play against at the moment. And can you imagine the unrest, at Anfield if we can't find a way through, or they make a goal from a set piece or whatever, So, this is another one in it. I just think it's such a difficult challenge for us at the moment. Last season, I wouldn't have asked either. You go, we beat these 3-0 all day long. We get an early goal, we control it. They have to open up, we finish it off. Now, I just really don't know.
Can I just say as well, from a fan's perspective, that what's killing me is the fact that we and City as well are making it a procession to this title for Arsenal. It's really sticking in my craw, I have to say. I don't know where this antipathy I have towards Arsenal comes from, but it's very real. It could be something to do with their fans and being too much exposed to them online. I mean, you have got bad Arsenal memories going back as far as '89. It really is. It's a cakewalk for them, isn't it? They've got nobody's putting it up to them.
No, they're not. Although the game on Sunday will be interesting, Chelsea against Arsenal. I did the Chelsea game on Tuesday against Barcelona, and they were very impressive, very, very aggressive. Chelsea were, and then having said all of that, this Barcelona Real Madrid thing, Trevor. Every time they're the best in the world and they have the best players in the world, and then I go, well, all right, come and show it then, And they were again a bit, weak, and Barcelona certainly won't finish in the top 8, I think, in the Champions League, so they were also a little bit weak, but Chelsea did well. So if there's a team who has a chance, it's Chelsea, but I suggest they probably need to beat Arsenal. A draw probably wouldn't be enough in it, but we, Trevor, luckily, have got other things on our mind.
We do, yeah, including how have we come to be in a situation where Chelsea are a better option. Oh, God, it's horrible. We will, however, finish the show with the usual prediction. And it's changed over the last few weeks to a time that I'm dreading as opposed to a time that I look forward to. Looking ahead then to first West Ham and then Sunderland. How do you see them going, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, Trevor, it got worse on Monday, didn't it? When Everton won at Old Trafford and then climbed above us as well. It's like, no fucking way. So, the fact that West Ham are weak, I think, gives us a chance. We'll have a foxhole in the game. So, it'll be West Ham 2, Liverpool 3. There's your 3 points, Trevor. That then gives you peace for the Sunderland game. And the Sunderland game is going to be Liverpool 1, Sunderland 1. There you are.
I mean, I'm taking it because anything's better than what we've seen recently. A difficult one this evening. Loads of things to talk about. Appreciate you humouring all the different angles. Thanks to you people in the chat panel for keeping the discussion lively. Nice to see you getting involved in the debate as we go forward. We'll do one of the shows in the next couple of weeks where we take as many questions as we can from you guys. But as we look ahead, Jan, all we can do is cross our fingers because it feels like, we have no control over this. We have to hope that the man at the top can get it right.
All we can do, Trevor, is get on with it. And it's every 3 days in it. So you can make a hell of a difference in a relatively short time. So now's the time. There's only 3 points up to 4th.
That's very true. That's very true. There is a fix on the cards with a succession of wins. Hopefully that's something that we can talk about because God knows we've missed it. Thanks to Jan as ever. Thanks to you for listening. I've been Trev. This is Molby in the Spot. Talk to you soon.